She stood shackled in the auction chamber, her violet eyes void of hope. "Just take her, she's useless," the Valari guard spat, shoving her forward like garbage. But then he stepped into the light, a human, unexpected and defiant. And as their eyes met, something inside her stirred. She wasn't worthless. Not to him. The auctioneer barely raised a brow as the human approached the platform. This wasn't his realm. The Valari were notorious for their cold genetic purism. What use did a soft-blooded earthling have for damaged goods? Especially her. Kylara lowered her head, her long pale locks spilling over bruised shoulders, expecting chains, or worse. But he didn't touch her. "I'll take her," he said simply. Murmurs broke through the room like static. The bidders were confused. Some laughed. Others whispered insults in alien dialects. One voice from the crowd, another Valari, sneered, "Why waste credits on broken trash?" The human's gaze didn't falter. "I'm not paying." A tense silence fell. Even Kylara's heart skipped. "Not paying. I invoke the sanctuary clause," he added, voice hard and clear. "As a representative of the Terran coalition, I claim this sentient being as a refugee under interstellar law." The auctioneer blinked his multiple eyes. "She is a classified reject of Valari High Command. Law doesn't apply. Then Valari High Command can file a complaint," he said coolly. "But this ends here." Kylara couldn't look at him. This had to be some kind of trick. Or worse, a performance. But the guard beside her moved, reluctantly unlocking the biobinders from her wrists. The metal clattered to the floor. She remained still, numb. No one ever chose her. Especially not like this. "Can you walk?" he asked. She lifted her chin slowly. His voice wasn't cruel. There was no demand in it. Just concern. "I can," she whispered hoarsely, though her legs trembled. He didn't offer his hand. Instead, he stepped aside, giving her space. Letting her choose. She moved. Every eye in the room followed her frail frame as she descended the stairs beside him. A few spat in her direction. Others laughed. One threw a piece of dried meat at her feet. But he didn't flinch. He just walked beside her, a quiet, solid shadow against the bright lights of the corridor ahead. His ship was small, older than it looked, definitely not military. As they stepped inside, the hatch sealed shut with a pressurized hiss. The hum of artificial gravity settled beneath her bare feet. She collapsed onto the metal floor without a word. The human didn't rush. He moved toward a cabinet, pulled out a folded blanket, and placed it next to her. Then, silently, he walked to the pilot's seat and began to initiate takeoff. Kylara curled up, limbs aching, breath shallow. She tried not to shake, but her muscles refused to listen. Fear was too deeply etched into her bones. Her people had taught her only one thing: survival means silence. Obedience. Numbness. And yet, here she was. Not in a cell. Not in chains. "Where are we going?" she rasped after several minutes. The ship hummed into hyperspace. "Somewhere quiet," he replied. "Somewhere safe." She closed her eyes. Hours passed before he returned to the small sleeping area where she drifted into a half-doze. He held a bowl. Something warm steamed from it. Her stomach twisted. "I'm Eli," he said, crouching beside her. She stared at him warily. "Why did you take me?" "Because no one else saw what I did." "What did you see?" He held her gaze. "Someone worth saving." Kylara turned her face away. "Then you were wrong." Eli didn't argue. He set the bowl down gently and stood. "I'll be in the cockpit if you need anything." Once he left, she sat up, dragging the bowl toward her. It was some sort of broth, simple, but fragrant. Her hands trembled as she lifted it. Warmth spread down her throat like a whisper of life. She hadn't eaten real food in days. The next few cycles blurred together. Eli respected her silence, never once forcing conversation. He offered her clean clothes, soft human fabric that felt foreign against her skin. He cleaned her wounds with gentleness that felt impossible. The kind of kindness that made her flinch. He didn't ask questions. He didn't touch her. And that unnerved her more than anything. Late one cycle, she approached the cockpit. He sat with his feet up, eyes on a star map, sipping something from a dented cup. She hovered in the doorway. I was told I couldn't breed, she said suddenly. That I had a chromosomal flaw. No military use. No reproduction value. That made me defective. Eli looked up. You believe that? She hesitated. It's all I've known. He didn't respond right away. Then he nodded toward the stars. Do you know what the first Terran colonists used to say? That every species measures worth by what they fear losing. She blinked, unsure. Valari fear weakness, so they discard it. Humans fear loneliness. So we hold on even to the broken things. Her breath caught. Something shifted inside her. She couldn't name it. Eli stood and moved toward the kitchenette, refilling his cup. Sleep. You need it. Kylara turned, then paused. Thank you, she whispered. He smiled faintly, and it wasn't pity, it was warm, genuine. For seeing me, she added, barely audible. He nodded once. Anytime. She returned to her quarters and lay on the bed, a real bed, and for the first time in her adult life, she cried. Not from pain. Not from fear. But because someone, a human, had looked at her like she mattered. And for the first time, she believed maybe she did. Kylara had slept on steel floors for most of her life, but the cot aboard Eli's ship felt like clouds beneath her skin. She awoke slowly, unsure if her body had betrayed her, perhaps she was dreaming, still trapped in a slave cell, hallucinating freedom. But the soft hum of the ship's engines, the muted warmth of the cabin air, and the scent of something warm cooking just outside told her it was real. She sat up slowly. Her body still ached, bruises darkening over her translucent Valari skin. But something else itched under the surface, something that wasn't pain. Something like yearning. The doorway opened with a soft hiss. Eli stood there, a steaming mug in one hand. His stubble was darker now, eyes bloodshot from too many hours awake. But he smiled when he saw her. You're awake. Kylara pulled the blanket closer to her. I didn't mean to sleep that long. You needed it. He set the mug on a shelf beside her bed. It's honey root tea. Good for healing. She stared at the cup. You don't have to keep being kind. I'm not doing it because I have to, he said softly. I'm doing it because I want to. That shouldn't have struck her so deeply. But it did. After he left, she sat holding the mug in both hands, its warmth seeping into her palms. She sipped carefully, the sweet bitter taste unfamiliar but comforting. Later that cycle, she found herself wandering into the cockpit again. The stars outside stretched like ribbons, fluid and constant, while Eli tinkered with a side console. Where are we going? She asked. He leaned back. Home. Or at least what passes for it these days. Human outpost near Delros 9. Remote enough the Valari won't poke around. Her throat tightened. They'll come for me. They'll try, he said calmly. But they'll have to go through me first. She blinked. Why? His eyes met hers. Because I meant what I said. You're not worthless. You've just never had a chance to breathe. She stepped closer. You don't even know me. I know enough. She laughed, soft, disbelieving. What do you know? He stood slowly, folding his arms. I know you flinch when someone raises their voice. That you walk like you're afraid to take up space. That you expect every kindness to be a trap. She froze. But you still came to the cockpit, he added. You didn't have to. Her voice wavered. You scare me. I know. And I don't understand you. I wouldn't either, he said, if I were you. They stood in silence. The ship felt smaller somehow, like the walls were pulling in just enough to force them closer. Kylara looked up at him, studying the lines on his face, the human texture of him, flawed, aging, rough around the edges. And yet he looked at her like she was a galaxy. I don't know how to be anything but broken, she whispered. He took a step closer. You don't have to be anything. Not for me. That night, Kylara sat by the main viewport, watching the stars alone. She pressed a hand against the cold glass. Her skin looked alien even to herself now, too pale, too thin, too distant from the warmth she felt when Eli looked at her. She didn't know what it meant. But she knew what it didn't feel like: ownership, slavery, expectation. It felt like possibility. The next day, Eli taught her how to fly the secondary controls. He guided her hands across the panel, their skin brushing. Her heart stuttered in her chest, and she pulled away quickly. He didn't force her to continue, just smiled and let her breathe. They talked more, little by little. About Earth. About what human sunsets looked like. About oceans, something she'd only ever read about in detention manuals. She was stunned by the idea that people would swim in water freely, laugh in it, float on their backs and watch stars. Earth sounds like fiction, she murmured one evening. It's real, Eli said, eyes distant. And you'll see it. If you want to. I've never been wanted, she said. Not really. You are now. He said it without ceremony. No grand flourish. Just truth. It settled in her chest like a pulse. Later, while she cleaned herself in the sonic washroom, she stared into the mirror. She didn't recognize the reflection. Her bruises were fading. Her eyes weren't as hollow. And something had changed in the way she held herself: straighter, softer. She touched her own face and whispered, "He sees you." Eli didn't knock when he came to check on her. He just stood by the doorway, watching silently as she adjusted the simple human clothing he'd given her: a loose shirt, soft pants, nothing like the cruel armor the Valari used to strap her into. "You look different," he said. "I feel different." Their eyes met. The air thickened between them. Then, as if guided by something invisible, she stepped forward. He didn't move. Her hand touched his chest, just above his heart. He was so warm. So alive. Her fingers trembled. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I just want you here. As you are." "I want to stay," she said, voice cracking. "But I'm scared of what that means." "It means you get to choose," he whispered. "Every day. No one else decides for you anymore." Something inside her shattered, but it wasn't pain. It was a wall. She leaned in. He didn't kiss her, but he let her rest her forehead against his. And in that quiet closeness, Kylara understood what it meant to be safe. Not because of chains or walls, but because someone wanted her to be free. That night, she fell asleep in the cot, heart aching with something she had no name for. In the darkness of the ship, Eli stood at the cockpit window, watching the stars. But he wasn't thinking about home anymore. He was thinking about her. And how fragile and powerful love could be, even in the silence of space. They landed on a moon no one remembered. It hung in the quiet rim of the Delros system, untouched by trade ships, too cold for colonies, too distant for patrols. The surface shimmered under twin suns, dusted in violet snow that never melted. Towering crystalline trees cast shifting shadows, humming softly in the wind. Kylara stepped off the ship in silence, her boots crunching against frozen moss. For a moment, she didn't move, just stood there, letting the wind hit her face. Eli watched her from the hatch, arms folded, waiting. "I've never breathed clean air before," she said softly. "Not like this." He smiled. "It's not clean. You're just not used to freedom." She turned to him, something sparking in her eyes. "And this place? No one comes here?" "Not anymore. Abandoned mining site. Records say it's unstable, but that's bureaucratic speak for not profitable. It's safe enough." They set up a small camp near a rock shelf overlooking a frozen stream. The ship's power sustained the heating units, and Eli erected a basic dome with filtered air and clear glass walls. Inside, the light felt golden, warm, like sunlight captured in a bottle. Kylara sat by the dome's edge that night, legs pulled up to her chest, watching the alien forest sway under the stars. Eli brought her a thermal blanket. "You can come inside." "I like the cold," she said, glancing up. "It reminds me I'm still alive." He sat beside her. Close enough to share warmth. Not close enough to crowd her. For minutes, they said nothing. Then she whispered, "Do humans believe in soul bonds?" Eli tilted his head. "Some do." "Why?" "The Valari don't. We believe in hierarchy. Biology. Function. There's no place for affection. No room for love. Do you believe in it?" She hesitated. I didn't. Until you. The words hung between them like heat. Eli didn't move. Didn't speak. She turned, slowly, watching his profile. You confuse me, she admitted. I was trained to avoid emotions. To suppress them. They said they made me weak. You're not weak, he said. I feel like I am. He looked at her now. Really looked. Kylara, he said quietly, I watched you survive a system designed to break you. I've seen soldiers fall apart from less. You're not weak. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Her breath hitched. Then, quietly, I don't want to feel this way if it's not real. Eli didn't answer with words. He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing her cheek, soft, hesitant. Her skin burned where he touched. She didn't flinch. His hand slid to her jaw, cradling her face like it was something sacred. And then he leaned in, slow, measured, and kissed her. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't about claiming or ownership. It was a whisper of everything she thought she'd never deserve. When their lips parted, Kylara stared at him, wide-eyed, heart thundering. You didn't have to, she said. I wanted to. Her fingers reached for his shirt, gripping it tightly. Then do it again. This time, she kissed him first. It was longer. Deeper. Her whole body trembled from it, but she didn't pull away. And when Eli's arms wrapped around her, drawing her closer, she let herself melt into him, one heartbeat at a time. They didn't speak much that night. There were no grand declarations, no promises. Just warmth. Just the steady rhythm of breathing in sync. Kylara fell asleep with her head on his chest, his fingers brushing slow circles into her back. And for the first time in her life, she didn't dream of cages. But peace doesn't last in galaxies that profit from control. The next morning, Eli scanned the outer perimeter, brows drawn tight. There's a signal nearby, he murmured. Not ours. Kylara stiffened. Valari? Possibly. Could be a beacon. Could be a drone sweep. Either way, we have hours at most. Her breath turned shallow. How did they find us? He stared at the scanner. Then turned slowly toward her. Kylara, have you ever been implanted? She blinked. What? Biotracker. Subdermal. Hidden behind tissue layers. Common in slaves. Especially high-risk ones. Her skin went cold. They said I was a reject, she whispered. Why would they track me? Because you were never meant to be free. He grabbed a kit from the ship. I can try to find it. But if they're close enough to scan, they already know where we are. She swallowed, trembling. I led them to you. No, he said firmly. They put this in you. You did nothing wrong. But guilt bloomed behind her ribs like fire. Eli activated the medglove and scanned the back of her neck. The console beeped. There, he said quietly. Behind the left clavicle. Deep. Take it out, she whispered. It'll hurt. Good. He didn't argue. The procedure was fast but brutal. Kylara gritted her teeth, holding back screams. Blood trickled down her shoulder as Eli removed a glass bead no larger than a fingernail, glowing faintly blue. He crushed it under his boot without hesitation. They'll still come, she said, breathless. Then we fight. She stared at him. You'd risk everything for me. Eli met her eyes. I already did. Outside the dome, the wind picked up. Above them, the sky darkened. Somewhere in orbit, Valari ships arrived, silent, cloaked, hungry. Kylara stood tall, despite the pain in her body, the blood on her skin. Her eyes glowed with something new. No longer survival. Not even hope. But love. If they came for her, they would find a woman no longer afraid. And they would find a human who would burn the stars to protect her. Together, they faced the dark horizon. Hand in hand. Unbreakable. The sky cracked open at dawn. Valari warships descended like predators, cutting through cloud and silence with gleaming precision. Kylara and Eli stood just beyond the dome, their breath visible in the frigid air, weapons charged and hearts racing. She wore no armor, just a thermal suit and a determined stare. Eli stood beside her, jaw clenched, ready for war. They'd hidden long enough. Running was no longer an option. They'll want you alive, Eli said, voice steady. Kylara nodded. But they'll want you dead. They'll have to try really hard. She glanced sideways. Why didn't you leave me when you found the tracker? His answer came without pause. Because I love you. She didn't flinch. Didn't hesitate. I love you too. The words didn't feel stolen or impossible. They felt like gravity, undeniable and anchoring. The first dropship hit the ground 100 meters away. Valari soldiers poured out in a triangle formation, sleek rifles drawn, their black armor gleaming beneath the pale sky. One figure stood ahead of them, tall, sharp-featured, flanked by drones. Kylara of House Sivrin, the commander barked through a voice modulator. You are the property of the Dominion. Return now, and the human will be granted a swift death. Kylara stepped forward, unarmed. I was never yours. The commander's voice hardened. Your DNA was coded for obedience. You belong to the bloodline. I don't care, she said. I belong to no one. She reached back and took Eli's hand. I choose him. The commander raised a hand. Eli didn't wait. His pulse rifle sang with light, slicing through the air. The blast shattered the lead drone, scattering the squad behind it. Chaos erupted, shouts, energy bursts, smoke grenades. Kylara moved like wind. She didn't need a weapon. She had rage, memory, purpose. She launched herself into the nearest Valari, driving her elbow into their throat and flipping the rifle from their grip. In seconds, she had it aimed and firing with terrifying accuracy. Eli fought beside her, covering her blind spots, never leaving her side. Together, they became something unstoppable. But numbers wore them down. By the time the last wave landed, their power cells were blinking red, their arms heavy, breath ragged. Blood streaked Kylara's temple. Eli had a burn down his shoulder. The Valari surrounded them again, closer this time. No escape left. The commander stepped forward, smug behind his mask. You had promise, Kylara, he said. But you chose ruin. She lifted her chin, defiant even with a cracked lip. No. I chose love. He raised his weapon. Eli moved before he could think. A flash. A charge. A scream. When the smoke cleared, the commander was dead. Eli knelt beside Kylara, shielding her as the remaining soldiers froze, uncertain. Above them, a second ship appeared, this one marked with Terran emblems. Reinforcements. The Valari fell back under the shadow of a Terran dreadnought, its guns already powering up. Within minutes, they vanished into retreat, scattering like insects from flame. It was over. The medics tried to separate them, but Kylara refused. She stayed by Eli's side as they treated his wounds. When the doctor asked her name, she answered, Kylara Cross. No one corrected her. 3 weeks later, they stood on a coastal bluff on Earth. The wind smelled of salt and flowers. Children played in the distance, laughter ringing through the trees. Kylara stood barefoot on the grass, soaking it in. Feels soft, she said, eyes wide. Eli stood behind her, arms around her waist. Welcome home. She turned, eyes shimmering with something new. Not pain. Not sorrow. But life. I don't know what I am anymore, she whispered. You're free, he said. You're mine, if you want to be. And you're more than enough. She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. Then let's start something new. He kissed her, slow and deep, with no urgency, just love. Later, in the warmth of their new home, Kylara sat in silence, her hand resting over her abdomen. He looked at her, puzzled. Everything okay? She nodded slowly. There's something I need to tell you. His brows lifted. She took his hand and placed it over her belly. It's yours, she whispered. He froze. For a moment, the room was still. Then he pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers, eyes wet. You're carrying our child? She nodded. The first of both our worlds. Tears slid down his cheek. You were never useless, Kylara. She smiled softly, kissing him again. No. I just hadn't met you yet. Outside, the earth wind carried the scent of wildflowers. And inside, two hearts, once shattered, beat together, building a new future from the ashes of the old. A Valari. A human. And the child of a love that defied galaxies.